Welcome to Novelist Spotlight. This is Mike Consol, your host. Before we begin this episode, I want to alert you that my latest book is now available in both print and ebook formats. The title is Love American Style, and it is a collection of short stories about men, women, their passions, and their dysfunctions. There's a short link in the episode notes that will take you to my Amazon profile page, where all 4 of my books are listed, 3 novels in this new short story collection. Again, the title of the new one is Love American Style, named after the TV series that ran from 1969 until 1974. Now, on with our program. In the spotlight is Sandra Scofield. In the spotlight again, I should say, because Sandra was a guest on the program 2 years ago. And at that time, we talked about a lot of different things, including a novel that she was working on, which is what we're going to be talking about today, among other things. And it's her 8th novel. And, you know, the Novelist Spotlight shone so brightly on her 2 years ago that I normally don't have people on a second time. It's pretty rare, but we had a really great conversation. That was episode number 59, episode number 59. If you want to go back and take a listen to it, it's terrific. But listen to this first, because this is an update on where Sandra's at with her writing career and so on. Sandra, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you. So, novel number 8. At the time when we spoke 2 years ago, I know you were working on this one. It's called Little Ships, and for our listeners, it's available. It's available now. It's sitting right there on Amazon and other book sites. And Sandra's going to tell us a little bit about it. But
audio too.
you say that again. Oh, it's in audio as well. Okay, who's your reader?
A clone of an actor.
A clone of an actor. And you approved of that. Do they ask for approval on that? Do they say, are you comfortable with the voice? Because I found a lot of times what
I
happens.
had everything to do with it. I approved it. It was a
Oh, this
very
is right.
small
That's right.
company.
That's
It's
right.
wonderful. Yeah, it's great. Perfect.
This is part of what we have to talk about because we'll go back to 2 years ago. You were talking about how you felt like this is the best thing you've written so far, but it was troublesome. Why don't you tell us a story of what happened?
With Little Ships.
Yeah, with the book, because you had said at that time
Oh,
that
yeah.
you
Well,
felt like it was your best work, but you were having some trouble getting your
yeah, I
agent
had
and
a
or some editors interested in it.
right. I have a great agent at a great um at Folio, and all the editors loved it, but nobody bought it. Going further up because I mean, basically, I think it could be summed up as this isn't what the market is looking for right now.
And
I mean,
what is that? What is it
well,
that
I don't know what the market is looking for because
No, but
they're
what is
not
the market
looking
looking
for.
for according to them? Because you wrote something that they say, well, we don't know, the market doesn't seem to have an interest in this kind of stuff.
Right,
Uh,
which is, a domestic middle class family, um, 3 generations, uh, facing grief and loss,
hmm
and trying to put their lives together. With most of the concern being adolescent girls who've lost their mother. Um,
There's a lot of literature out there that deals with heavy issues that are not, that oftentimes are depressing and so on. You don't write pop novels, you write literature. You were a finalist in 1991 for the National Book Award. I neglected to say that at the
yeah.
top. I wanted to make sure people know that you're a very serious writer, and what you write is literature. It's not the latest legal thriller or sci-fi novel. What was it about Little Ships that made you say, I think that this is my best work? What were the characteristics about it that you thought exceeded your
Well,
previous work?
one thing that I like about the novel is is the breadth of the characters, because you do have these girls, but the real voices of the novel are 2 grandmothers, 60 and 70 years old, And basically everybody in the story is trying to remake a life. And uh, with different people and with different families, maybe some people are lucky and just go through the arc of life without having to do this. But I bet
Hmm.
most of us have a place where you decide whether to get a divorce, whether you're facing major surgery, someone's sick or dying, you're making a move across the country. That the American life is full of shuffles. And
Hmm.
then when something completely out of your control happens, that sets off that shuffle. And um, you know, as an older woman myself, I really relished looking at how these two women, I mean, not only did they have to figure out how to construct an environment for these kids, but they realized that they were going to remake their own lives. And I didn't know that when I started writing it, that that would happen. I thought of them as the conduits of change, but I didn't think about how much change would happen to them. And for me as a writer, that's what was most exciting. Um,
Now, do the pros themselves, are they, is your writing different than previous novels in terms of the voice or the tone? Or is the thing that sets it apart, it's the characters, the situation, the story?
what
I
I
know
mean,
they're
I think
indistinguishable
it's
probably
more
in your eyes too,
complex.
right?
Yeah, I mean, as far as a story, I think it's more complex thematically. But I think I don't know better, worse, or what. I think the prose has changed.
Uh-huh.
As I've matured and I see the world differently. I think it has. I think there's a lot of. Let me think what the word would be. There's a lot of thinking and rethinking that the minds of the characters not knowing where they're going emotionally. I mean, they're trying to be practical. So it's like there's two levels. There's all this practical stuff that has to be taken care of, from burying someone to get somebody in school to, where are people going to live? But it's really, what does the future hold? And
Right.
I think most, I mean, novels are always about problems. So my novels have always been about problems. But ironically, I really felt this novel was about making the future. And when you have a 60 and 70-year-old women, and that's thematically what's going on. Um,
The stakes are high.
yeah,
You have a lot more
it's
track
the
behind you
rest,
than you do ahead of you.
it's the
And
rest of your life. Yeah.
yeah, and a bad decision. It becomes that much harder to rectify a bad decision as we age, as we get older. It takes energy, and we have to be willing to not just decide, oh well, bad decision. I thought it was going to turn out differently, but I really don't.
Yeah.
Inertia has set in, and I really don't have the verve to go through another transition, another changeover.
I also have never written about a mature marriage before. And I thought, and that was interesting to deal with.
I bet.
I
I
mean,
bet.
it's two marriages. And I I have to say the men don't come off just
We
as
never do when the women are writing. We never do.
yeah. I mean, I think Eleanor is the primary voice of the novel, the mother of the son who's brought his two girls to live with him when his wife dies. Um, and I think Eleanor, in some ways, I think it's maybe typical that when you raise a family and you work and the marriage is sound, you don't you don't always know what's really happening. That, because life is about changing,
Hmm.
you know.
Well, it was Kingsley Amis, the great novelist, who said the only proof of life is change. If
Yeah,
if something's
that's
not
right.
changing, it's dead.
Yeah. There's also the matter in both marriages, the men have control of the money, and and that's very significant.
That's a generational thing too, don't you think? I mean,
Yeah,
nowadays you
it
see a lot of
is.
women who are.
I don't
I
think you
mean, in
do
my
it.
own marriage, my wife and I both earn incomes, and we have joint money, and then we have our own separate money. We keep
Exactly. Yeah.
small amounts, but keeps us in a situation where we feel autonomy, but we also feel unity because we mix our dollars together in a household account, in a vacation account, savings or emergency account, and so on. Money is such a huge factor. But let me ask you because I want you to kind of frame the whole book, but I also want to ask you because you are not only a literature, you not only write literature, but you teach writing.
Hmm.
So the did the regimen that you followed for this book in terms of your daily work on it, it was any different than previously? Do you have a regimen that has worked your entire career and that's what you do? Or was this novel distinctive in some way in terms of just the effort to put it out?
Oh, in terms of the effort to put it out, it was very different in that I basically didn't have to do anything else. I mean, I took a week off to go teach, or I did this, or I did that, but I didn't have, what all my other novels, I had jobs, I had young daughter, a lot of things, but
I
this
see.
book was my life for almost 2 years. I never stopped thinking about it.
Yeah,
Um,
well, okay. I didn't realize. So you had 100% of your time available, basically. You could
mhm.
you could turn it into your daily job. So you had a lot more hours available to work on it, and probably less pressure, I would imagine, less pressure when you were working on it. In
Right,
some ways, you didn't have the job gnawing at you in the back of your mind.
right, and I wasn't. It wasn't going to matter to us financially, which is why I could self-publish. Um,
Right. Talk
I
about that
just could
decision.
worry about the book, just the story.
So you did that, and then you decided, I like we were talking about earlier. You think it's the best thing that you've done to date, and people, it wasn't as received as well as you would have liked, and you made the decision. I'm going to self-publish. So you made that decision prior to finishing the manuscript, or at
I
least the
did.
final draft.
I saw it coming. I mean, my agent spent half a year trying to find a publisher. It was a disappointment, and
Sure.
frankly, it was a surprise. But I'm surprised how easily I got over it. It's not like you said, what didn't matter financially, and the writing is, making this story is what really mattered to me.
Hmm.
I was exploring things that I haven't explored before. One of the things I think some of it, people who've read it are surprised. For example, um, one of the major things is that the father, Nick, is addicted to marijuana.
Hmm.
We are now in a generation and a time when, hey, it's okay to smoke marijuana. I mean, you can have gummies to get to sleep or whatever. Just down the street from me, they've got a dispensary. I pass another dispensary going to the grocery store. I just read that some governor just let 800 people out of jail that had been jailed for marijuana. Biden just, and I think that's great. I'm for that. I don't
Not
think we
holding
should go to
those
jail for
crimes.
marijuana.
Yeah. Yeah.
By God, it's a drug. It's a drug, and everybody isn't capable of handling it. just
Hmm.
like drinking is a drug.
Right, right. And a
And
lot of people can't handle it. That's very
and
common. Prisons are
marijuana.
full of people who can't handle alcohol.
I mean, that
So
addiction destroys that young family's life, and carries into the story.
now,
Um,
where are you, Sandra? What state and city and state are you in again? I forget.
I'm in Missoula, Montana.
Missoula, Montana. Okay. Very
Nice town.
good.
I didn't want to come here, but it's Montana. My husband is a Montanan, so when he retired, we came here, and I really like it. I don't. I'm not really a part of the community, although finally I'm going to teach a course on writing the novel at the college in the spring. But and I miss my friends, but two of my friends just died, and the third really close friend lives in Denver, so
Uh,
might as well be
Sorry to
here.
hear that.
Yeah, it's hard at this time of year. This time of
Yeah.
um
This time of
yeah,
life and this time of year.
Missoula's nice.
Hmm. You're
It's
happy
pretty.
there.
Yeah, I am. And
How pers Oh, go
my
ahead.
daughter and granddaughter, this is ironic given in the book, Nick and his girls move in with his mother. Our daughter and granddaughter moved in with us last year. And
Did
that's going well too. They were in Portland.
hmm
Things just got too hard for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, were you still writing the book when they were under your
Yeah,
roof? Yeah. So you were able to experience what you were writing as well.
yeah, I thought about that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So how personal? I mean, obviously there's that personal element to it, but how personal is Little Ships to you? I mean, is this the book that's most personal to you, or maybe had the
No,
maybe
I would say the book that's most personal to me was the one that was the National Book Award finalist, Beyond Deserving. And that was a
Beyond
long,
Deserving?
long time ago. That was a different marriage. Um, yes, it's
That
just,
was 91. Yeah,
yeah, this one
1991.
is personal in different ways. One, as I, have said in several different ways, I realized as I was writing it how much it was about seeing the way aging changes how you see your own life, because it's at that end of it. The other thing is that maybe, well, I am going to say it. I had a dear cousin who died after his wife died, and the kids went to live with my aunt. So it was that situation, for 35 years has been in my mind and watching how that worked. But I have to say the real life situation didn't work out as well as the novel.
Mm.
Maybe that was my chance to deal with that too. I
Now,
mean,
you know what your just book reminds me of is James Salter's book Light Years about a
oh, I
marriage that
love
comes
you.
apart.
James Salter is,
Isn't he wonderful? That's my
he is
favorite book of
wonderful.
his.
He wrote me a postcard um, about Gringa, my second book, and it's my
Oh, that's right.
all things. It is my treasure.
You just reminded me of, yeah, we did talk about that on that the first
Yeah.
time we spoke on episode number 59. And but here, lo and behold, with you talking about Little Ships, it brought to mind James Salter. I mean, I think the marriage, she was 40 years old. She wanted to leave the marriage and decided, she wanted to find herself. She wanted to start a new life. Not that he did anything wrong, is my recollection. He wasn't
Yeah,
a bad
yeah.
guy. She just made the decision about what she wanted for the rest of her life, much like you're talking about, but a younger time frame,
But
40
I think
versus 60s or 70s.
I've had many conversations about Salter with other writers, and most of them think of him as being a men's writer, and I think of him as having a really deep interest in women.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. I think he has a real feel for women. He adores them. And and I think in one of his novels, he said at one point, if one of his characters said, "Men's lives bore me." And I feel like that was
Yeah.
James Salter speaking on his own behalf that men's lives bore him. He's much more interested in women's lives.
Well, I
Now,
think
now
it's
I'm putting words in his. I mean, he wrote the
no, but I
words,
think
but
you're, yeah,
I'm
I have that
interpreting.
I have that same feeling. And I shouldn't say this to you since you're male, but I think men are often so clueless about what's happening with the women in their lives.
I think that's true. I think
It's
that's
just
true.
really hard.
Well, and I think it's both. Yeah, but I do think it cuts both ways because
Oh,
oftentimes
yeah,
it's
sure.
guys are, as men are prone to do, messing around, and the women often, and I think sometimes it's not that they're not aware or clueless about it. Sometimes I think they choose to ignore it, at least temporarily, like it's a
Yeah.
passing phase or something like that. Or, um, different
I
generations think differently about it, though.
I thought that speaking generationally, I thought I understood teenage boys. I mean, not at the time, but later looking back, my book Walking Dunes is it's really a kind of tragedy about a high school senior, a boy. But that's really the only time that's been my major focus of interest. Um, and it was somebody, it was youth, youth is just interesting in its own way, and now old age is interesting in its own way.
Yeah, they'll every stage has got its lessons to teach, and it's different shades and moods. It's interesting. Um, so you also say that you saw the book as I'm looking back at a letter you wrote to me a while back, and you said you're also looking at it as a homage to women caregivers who have to
Yeah.
juggle so many
Yes.
things in their lives.
Yep. Yep. Like I said, my aunt. And I grew up, my mother and I, in my grandmother's house. And then I saw the same thing happen in my aunt's house with she had two different, I mean, she had a daughter come after a marriage and with her kids, and then she had a son come when his wife died. Um, and I think that's so common. It's the social order or whatever, or the old-fashioned family. It's a thing of the past. It's so fluid now. Who
Yeah.
lives with whom and who they're responsible for, and even which person leans on the other person, whether it's the woman or the man. Um,
Yeah, it's
all those old structures are gone, way gone.
yeah, yeah. Well, life has changed so much. I mean, people don't just stay in the same town they were born in anymore, and that was so often the case.
Mhm.
Now, with so much mobility, families just aren't together the way they used to be together. So, what do they say? Friends are the family you choose. I mean, ideally,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
how it would work out. Um, You
which
also
is
wrote in that letter, little ships soothe, and this ties into what you were saying earlier. Little ships soothed my heart as it seed was planted 30 years ago when my cousin Michael, father of two young children, lost his wife um, uh, from a virus that she got when a rat bit her. And he lasted, and after she died, he lasted less than a year before dying. And then your Aunt May, you said, had to
Mhm.
step in and raise the children.
Right.
Exactly what you're talking about. Not only about, I mean, here you've got extended family stepping in to your Aunt May's probably raising her second set of kids when she took over.
Yeah.
So
And now
yeah.
she's 99. She's in a nice place in Central Texas. And her son died, her daughters died. She has one daughter left. And she's very sad to outlive them, to
Oh, I can
reach
imagine.
99.
It's
My father died this year at 100. So I'm
wow.
looking forward to time to write another novel or two.
Oh yeah, yeah. You already have one that you're working on, I
I
think.
do.
Is it?
I do.
Can
Yeah.
you? Let's get to that later on, but I do want
Okay.
to ask you a little bit more about. I am very, very anxious to hear about the new one. What you can tell us about it, but also you did made this decision to go, to self-publish, which and you were fine with it. You said, how did the experience differ versus traditional publishing. What did you like about it? Are there any aspects of it that you don't like about it?
Well, it was a lot smoother ride just to do it myself. Um, I I think it would come down to one thing, the lack of distribution. You know, I'm not in bookstores. I don't know how to go about that. Um, you can get a bookstore to get the book, but I'm sure not very many have them. But with Amazon and Bookshop.org and that's pretty easy. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think the main thing is I made the decision to do it, and 3 months later I had a book. When you sell a book to a publisher, it might be 2 years
Yeah.
before.
Isn't that amazing?
And I don't think I think this next book, I've learned more. I learned a lot putting this book out, and I think I could do a better job of getting another one out. And I think I probably won't go. Probably won't
The
go that.
traditional route. Yeah.
No, because I'm 81 years old. I just, there's only so long you can sit around. Because it might take a year to sell it and
Yeah.
it might not sell,
You
but
want,
it might take a year to
it's
sell it
not,
in a
it's
year
far,
and a half.
it's far from instant gratification, but you do want to see it actually
Yeah, I
materialize
do. Yeah.
and have it in your hands, no question. Um, so the how does it work? Now, if you don't want to go here, let me know. But I'm curious, how does it work with your agent? Your agent's used to, okay, we do the traditional route, I get my percent. If you self-publish, is your agent involved at all in that
No,
process? So
no.
this is
And
just something
I
set
mean, she's
aside.
been very enthusiastic and supportive of me. And I think she was really surprised and sorry not to sell it, but no, and she's not I had an agent for a long time and she retired and this is her heir. She took over all, and a wonderful woman. But yeah, she's on to other things. I mean, I just, got a Christmas note from her today. I'm sure she'll read this new book. But
So maybe
unless she says to me, "Oh my God, Rita at Pantheon will take this tomorrow," I want to see the book, before I die.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's plausible that the book does well, self-published, and your agent is able to interest a publishing house that
Right.
had passed on it, and
Yeah.
that benefiting both of you. I mean, it would be an example of you proving the concept or proving, the worth of the novel of your particular novel, and your agent would be back in business.
I mean,
So,
all my friends who are writers that are older, like the founding faculty of the Solstice MFA program, which is where I teach in the summer, that's at Lasell University. There were five of us, and all the four, rather than me, all have called it quits as of last summer. But I, I'm going to go next summer, and then I'll take it one at a time. But um, you know,
but if you finish your
everybody
next
is
one,
thinking there's only so much time. I want to get this out.
yeah,
Although, if I'm talking to students, what I say to them is, if you're writing genre fiction, you really should seriously consider self-publishing. That some of the biggest books now are coming right through, I hate to say it, and Kindle. Um,
right, right,
but they tend to
but
be
they're self-published.
series. They're self-published, they're series, they're either they're either sexy or they're
Diabolical.
yeah, whatever. It's not, but I don't see literary novels making it this way. You see it between covers, and who, if
It
somebody,
would be, it's a rare thing. Maybe something like the goldfinch or all the light
yeah.
we cannot see, something on that order. But it's very rare for literature. But you have no interest, or you never had an interest then in genre fiction.
No, I don't have those ideas, and I don't
Yeah.
read it. Yeah,
It doesn't sound like it would feed your soul either.
right.
because
No,
it's pretty formulaic. I know that there are inventive writers who break the mold, but there's a lot of formula involved, which when you want to write freely, you don't want a formula that you have to adhere to.
right,
It
right.
impinges on the freedom that it should be to write.
I mean,
Um,
my formula is, are these people are these people that a reader might want to spend 250 or 300 pages with? Are they interesting? Are their lives, or is what's going on with their lives interesting emotionally and intellectually, rather
mhm.
than, I say to my students, decide, are you going to write a novel of plot or are you going to write a novel of character? Every novel has both, but they are very, very different. And
Yeah.
and I don't read plot and I don't write plot.
Yeah,
So
I've quoted him before, and maybe I quoted him in when we last talked, but Larry McMurtry talks about character. He said if a book doesn't have characters, a character you want to read about.
yeah,
Doesn't even say it has to be sympathetic or somebody to root for. It's just he says it's really all about character. He said everything else is nice to have, but show me a book without
yeah.
captivating characters. I'm out. I feel the same way. I'm about I my wife is very much the plot
Oh
driven
yeah, my
person.
husband too. Yeah.
There you go. And I will always say, I don't care if the story doesn't go anywhere, as long as I have interesting characters and situations, then they're just like a collection of really great vignettes, and I'm good with that. I don't have to have a payoff at the end of that kind. I want the payoff all the way through with really good writing and characterization and situations. That's exactly what you're doing with Little Ships. There's situations, you scramble it, and or your characters scramble it, and you get the emotional rewards of that. What are the emotional rewards of writing for you? Because writing's difficult, and
It
I
is.
ask authors this sometimes. So, and it can be really discouraging. But at the same time, people continue to do it because there's some kind of emotional reward. What's it for you?
Well, I think part of it is that I do lead this very sort of contained life. I always have. I'm not a friendly person. But that's one reason. That's one
You don't
reason I
talk to strangers in bars.
right. No, that's why I love going to Boston for 2 weeks every summer, because it's just like 2 weeks of writing and people who are writing and authors, and plus I get to go to a museum, and then I just come home and live in my house. Um, I don't. I think the satisfaction, it has two levels. One level is sheer pride in craft. I just really like to get it right, to pin it down. And and you hit walls where you don't think, how do I work this out? I got to this, but that's not where I thought I was going. And it's like making a puzzle, and it's intellectually exciting to go, oh, I know what I can do, and to make it work. But at the deeper level, it's like it's like creating an alternate, you know, an alternate family, an alternate world
Hmm.
of
Yeah,
that
and
you're emotionally attached to.
yes, yes, and I've said to people before that if you don't write fiction, you don't realize just how valuable creating characters is to an author, and the relationship that you actually have with them, and how to in a sense they're very real because they're a product of
Yeah.
your imagination, a product. It's a creation. It's alchemy. It's manifestation,
I
and
mean, I
that's
mean,
powerful.
they're not real, but I love my grandmothers. They're like part of me now.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I get it. I definitely have felt that. Let's go forward to what you're working on now, Sandra. What's is it do you
Wow,
have just
so
a working
different.
title, or are you keeping that under wraps and
No, no, the working title is All the Nuns Are Dead,
all the nuns are dead?
but it's
Okay.
not a mystery. Uh, the reason for that as a title is that I'm telling. I'm telling stories that I wouldn't tell when all the nuns were alive. It's
Mm.
as simple as that. I had a completely Catholic education as a child, all the way, and in high school I was in, except my senior year was in public school after my mother died. But um, I spent 5 years in boarding school, convent boarding school, and I I mean this I got a really good education.
You got
And
a good education, but do you feel like that's why maybe you feel contained? Was it the strictures of the Catholic? I was raised Catholic as well,
oh
so
yeah.
I kind of understand it.
Oh, there
Was
you
it the
go.
strictures of the Catholic Church that made you kind of be a little bit more self-contained than you would otherwise be?
Well, yes, yes, but I'm one of the things this is I mean, thematically, one of the deep things I'm concerned with is when I went off to I went off to boarding school. We were in Wichita Falls, Texas, and I went to Fort Worth. And well, actually, I actually lived in boarding school in Wichita Falls, even when even when we lived there, because my mother was ill. And it just, it was better. It really was better for me not to be living in the house with a dying mother.
Hmm.
At least that's what everybody thought. And part of what I'm dealing with this book is there was a hell of a lot of my childhood when I wasn't with my mother, I was with nuns.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and I lost something too. So that balance is really, is a good education worth that, But I was just
Hopefully you could
a child.
have both, preferably both good education, but also kind of an
I mean,
open
I could
psyche.
have, yeah, I could have gone to the Catholic school right there in town. The reason I went to Fort Worth is that the nuns said that they had better things to offer me there. And I think my mother wanted to get me out of the house because she she didn't want to die in front of me.
Mm,
So that is, I mean, that's the deeper theme. Um, is losing my mother. That's a theme in my life, in my writing, in every book. Um, but it's really fun to remember boarding
yes.
school and Catholic school.
You get to relive it, and you get to relive it on your terms.
And they were great, but there were some strange things about. I mean, there's just something strange. And
So is all the nuns are dead? Is the setting a boarding school?
yeah,
And
yeah.
is the narrator, is it a first person narration
No,
or
I'm writing it
third?
third
Okay.
person. But at the point where the child decides to do something, sh an an older person who's a novice, a girl she's grown up with, who now is becoming a nun, she says to her, "But if I do this, what will they think?" And she says, "It doesn't matter what they think, because one day they'll all be dead, and
Mm,
they won't care, and they don't care now, you know." Um, and in a way,
right.
I don't think I could have written this book until now. That order of nuns, Sisters of Saint Mary of Namur, they're fabulous nuns. Came came right after the Civil War from Belgium into the wreck of Wichita Falls and Waco were the two places, and built schools when the town was nothing but mud. And I mean, you've seen movies of post Civil War.
Yes. Yes.
And they really, all my nuns that taught me had graduate degrees. They were real
They were
academics.
educated. Yeah.
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 So they were wonderful, and I really respect them. But
How far along are you with it?
I have a pretty substantial draft, but I sort of have decided to change the structure. So I'm hoping to um what is it's December. I'm hoping to have it done by summer.
Oh, wow. So you're pretty far along.
Yeah, I've
You don't
been
really have that much longer to go.
No, I mean, I have all the stuff now to work with, so it's moving dominoes around. And
And you'll
I'm,
probably get it published quickly because you'll go the self-published route and you'll have it manifest.
yeah, I'd like to see it out in a little over a year, because time is flying. Time is flying.
Yeah. Don't you find, my father used to tell this to me, and I feel the same thing, that every year goes faster. It's like the same
Yes.
amount of time, but every year still seems to go faster,
Yep.
which is disappointing because you want to savor it, you want it to last.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it also kind of kicks you into gear that, hey, it's time. Whatever I've been waiting on, it's time to stop waiting and start doing.
But I spend about 3 hours a day painting now. I've been doing that for some years.
What does that do for you? Is it relaxing? Does it
There are
help
no
spur creativity?
words. That's
No
no
words. Okay, there you
words.
go.
That's it.
All
I love it.
imagery.
And I love color. I just love color.
What are you
Uh,
doing? Oils or
yeah,
pastels or
oils.
oils? Okay.
Sometimes I sketch in gouache. But since my daughter has moved in with me and knows what's what, she says you've got to have a website and let people see them. So we're talking about that in the new year. Right now,
She knows what's what in terms of marketing or in terms of, or is she a
well, in
painter
terms of
also?
getting a website going and all that. She's a
Yeah.
she's
Okay.
a she's
She's,
a jeweler. She makes jewelry, so
aha.
she has to have some. You know, she has to exist on the uh, internet and so forth. But I don't see. I don't care. It's different from writing. I don't. They're piling up. They're all over the house, and I don't care whether anybody sees them or not. But um, but I love doing it. I love doing it.
So, the you're pretty close to completion on all the nuns are dead. So do you already have yet another one in mind? Your number, this
No,
would
I
be
think
number
that'll be
nine.
it.
That would
I
be
think
10.
that'll be it.
So you're thinking retire, so to speak. I mean, I was surprised when Philip Roth said that he realized,
Yeah,
why do I keep writing? I can retire now. And he did, which surprised me a little because he always struck me as a guy who basically couldn't
right,
breathe if he wasn't writing, kind of like Stephen King, who's,
right.
indicated, well, I would probably go mad if I couldn't write, if I wasn't writing. And I thought Philip Roth was kind of not going to go mad, but that he just wouldn't feel like Philip Roth anymore. But
I
he
think he
did. He
just didn't
retired,
want to wrestle with it anymore. Yeah.
and then
No,
he died
no,
years. Not that many years later, it was over. But he had heart problems galore.
no, I think I'll be done. And I might write one more craft book. They've done well. Um,
Now you're talking about
I'd
like the
rather,
final draft and
yeah,
your writing book. You have a writing book, or for our listeners,
it,
there's a link to Sandra's website in the
yeah.
episode notes, and
Oh,
she's written
good.
a memoir, and she's also written a writing book called The Final Draft. If you go to episode number 59, she talks about the final draft. Everybody talks about the first draft or the first chapter,
Right,
getting your nut started. The final draft, though, she has insights about why that's important. She also talks about when I looked back at the episode notes from there, Sandra, we also talked about, or you talked about, the use of chapter summaries, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
also developing a one sentence theme for your
Mm-hmm.
novel.
Yep.
So
Don't
these are
ask
things that,
me. Don't ask me.
yeah,
I'm
no, I'm
not
not going to ask you
going to
now,
say
but
it.
because you've addressed it and it's sitting there for all to hear on, again, episode number 59 of the Novelist Spotlight
And
podcast.
and I have an earlier craft book too called the Scene Book, which is like I don't know who it is that keeps buying it. It's like an annuity. It came out in 2006, and every quarter I get a little check. It
Wow.
so I think
It keeps,
it must
yeah,
maybe being used in colleges, like in a literature class or something.
yeah, there you go. That's kind of a dream come true, getting something that just there's
Yeah,
certain
yeah,
books that are like that. They sell for, over the years, they just can maintain momentum.
Yeah. But
Um,
I can imagine myself getting up every day and painting all day long. I can. I just love
there's
doing
no
it.
pressure in that, huh?
Right. Which is why I haven't got any interest in trying to sell it. But I mean, I give it away some, but
Yeah.
I just mostly do it.
What
And
is the
I'm changing, maturing and seeing more what I want to do. It's just, it's a, I went through that with writing.
Well,
Uh,
what is the nexus between writing and painting, if there is one? What is that connection? Did you ever have an epiphany just in terms of, wow, these two disciplines are related in this way or that way, or feed one another in this way or that way?
well, my first impulse is to say, no, they're entirely different, which is why I love painting, because it's not about words, but it is about something. You do a painting and it has to be about something. Maybe it's about the color. Um, maybe it's about how you see nature. I mean, different artists have different ways of perceiving it. For me, I think it's what is changing and getting more mature is the way I handle color and less and less. I'm not abstract and I don't want to be abstract, but the paintings are really simple, are becoming less and less complex. The complexity is in getting the color right. So
Hmm.
it might just be two little bushes on a hill, or
Right.
I'm looking across the room right now and um, I've got all over the house. I have ledges and I set them up on ledges, and one painting is two pears and an apple on a blue cloth. And the other one is an apple, pear, and lemon on a purple cloth.
Hmm.
You go.
Well, Cezanne made a career out of that. He
Yeah.
made legend out of that.
Well, I think and I'll tell you something else that has really been a matter of growing and changing is when I spent years trying to learn how to paint, and then I realized I couldn't draw. I mean, I do draw, and I've drawn all my life, but I'm not really very good at drawing. And so I just thought, well, to hell with drawing, I'll just paint. So I have extremely simple setups, and it's making the color interesting and having shapes. So so I guess the simplest way to do it is to say, I look across the room and I see those paintings, and they're not shadow and light the way you hear. They're color and shape.
Hmm.
Because the things that are hard, I just don't do them. That's all.
You know, interesting. You emphasize getting the color right and all that. I will tell you, and I know you're not interested in selling them, but I will tell you that I had a friend back when I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, who her stuff honestly was very simplistic, but she knew what the color was of the year, the color of the season in fashion circles,
Yeah.
and she would use that color on almost every canvas. Not in a gaudy way. Not she wouldn't overwhelm the canvas with that color. She just made sure it was there, and then she had a lot of wealthy women who were thinking in terms of their what they were the new set of furniture and a whole
Right.
new
Why
motif,
not?
and this
Yeah.
goes with it. Yeah, and all she did was add that color in that alone, what propelled some sales. So just an
Well, my
FYI.
goal, my goal is to have a website by Easter, and then
By
we'll see.
Easter. Okay, that's not too far off.
Yeah. So, and
Yeah.
I guess I don't think there's any other. I think I'd use Sandra J. Scofield. I don't think there's any other Sandra J. Schofield painting. So look for
Well,
me in
Sandra,
Easter.
well, well, Sandra Scofield without the J. Congratulations on the new novel,
Thank you.
and thank you for coming on the program and sharing, a lot of a lot of information about the book. But I mean, you shared personal information, stuff that some of it painful. And I appreciate that you're. Of course, I guess that's what we learn to do as writers. So, but I do appreciate you being willing to be that
Well,
open.
you're wonderful. You're just a wonderful conversationalist, and I appreciate it. And I hope everybody is reading lots of wonderful books. I'm reading old ones, and I just want to end by saying that one of my favorite books in the whole world is A Month in the Country. The author is Carr, Carr, and it's an artist after World War I who goes to a little town to restore a fresco and heal. And that it's my idea of a wonderful novel.